Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Nerdrevolt number 53, Anti-Social Media. I'm your host, Brian Martinez, and I am joined by the usual suspects. Max, say hello.
All right. So a badger and a doge and a deer and a Simpsons can walk into a bar. Oh, sorry. Hey, guys, what's going on?
Hey, Max. Hannah.
Hey, where's that bar you were talking about? Hello.
Hello. And Scott.
I like how Max just no-platformed me. I just want to point that out.
Yeah. And you left out the hashtag.
Yeah. You left out the hashtag. God damn it, what a hashtag. Can't go to a bar.
I didn't know a hashtag was sentient.
Oh, you shitlord.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know.
I am also joined by special guests, Kraut and T. Hello, Kraut.
Guten Abend.
And
Guten
Teal Deer.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. So we're going to be looking at a lot of recent dust-ups that have been coming up lately with regards to the way, well, I'm going to let Max cover it, but essentially we're looking at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Max, take it away with the summary.
All right. So, guys, if you're listening to this show right now, I'm pretty sure that you're all familiar that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with bannings and stuff on social media these past couple of weeks. There have been rumors, of course, of the shadow banning on Twitter. There have been examples of content removal from Facebook where, the content removal was really benign. There's been some positive developments in the hashtag W2FU controversy, otherwise known as Doug Walker's Where's the Fair Use campaign, but, that development has been very slow. What all of this is doing is creating a very tepid environment online, and we're wondering if the heat will get to the point where things get chaotic and the pot, starts to boil over. So today, the Badgers will be documenting a few cases on social media websites that have captured our attention, and then Kraut and Teal Deer are going to take us through some research they've done on why some of this stuff might be happening. Now, before I get into the actual specifics, I just want to let you guys know that, just interrupt me at any time as I read this out if you have something to say. So, let's start off with Facebook, because, it's the most recent example. So, yesterday, I was sitting in a hotel room watching Karen interview Gregory Allen Elliott. When everything was said and done and we were about to leave the hotel, I was looking through my Twitter feed and saw that political commentator and friend of the show, Lauren Southern, had mentioned she was banned on Facebook for 24 hours. Now, you might be wondering, what did she do now? Well, she made a joke using the word faggot. Let us all engage in an odd hush. No, not really, though. She shared an article from Vice.com called Straight People Don't Exist, New Research Says. In response, she said, we're all allowed to use faggot in a reclamative sense now. Famed Breitbart journalist and self-described dangerous faggot, Milo Yiannopoulos, commented on the issue saying, that's so gay. Though humorous, those three words articulate the ridiculousness of this post-ban. The context of that word's use was not hateful. Moreover, Lauren Southern's association and work with people like Mr. Yiannopoulos makes her being a homophobe as likely as Half-Life 3's release. But Facebook's transgressions don't stop there. Want something even more ridiculous? Okay, so Miss Southern retweeted a post that detailed a similar occurrence. The post made by a Twitter user named ProudGWM said, as a homo myself, I like the word fag. He was banned for 24 hours. But wait, there's still more. A post on the Feminist Frequency Facebook page got removed, although we still have yet to confirm whether or not this resulted in the banning of the person who posted it. Now, the best part about this is that the post contained no inflammatory language. Here, I'll read it for you. The post said the following. I'm sorry, but I love Dawn. Totally incapable of forming an argument, so she just digs up all the straw men and ad hominems like it is going out of style. That's it. Now, I don't know who Dawn is, and maybe there's something I am missing, but I fail to comprehend any context where this post could violate any terms of service. And also, just before the show, right after I wrote the notes, Brian said he had something happen to him in regards to like a Facebook ban. What was that, Brian?
Yes, I did. And before I say that, do you think that maybe could it be that she wrote, or the person who wrote on that Feminist Frequency thing said, I love dong with a G? Is it possible, or could it have been construed that way? So, because, they fags, they like dong. I mean, all right, so this is what happened with me. I was chatting with Blair. I was about to chat with Blair White, who is, I've had her on for a fireside chat. She's a transgendered MRA, anti-feminist type. And we were basically setting up for another show. And I went to send her a message, and my Facebook suddenly closed and it logged me out. And then when I went to log back in, I was asked to, I was asked for my password. And when I logged in, I was told that I was essentially I had to re-verify my account because I made a post on Facebook that was offensive. And my post was, I don't even know what the context was, but it just showed me that I had.
Well, that's awkward.
What the hell? Right? Talking about censorship. Brian drops out of the show.
Imagine
God.
that.
That's
I'm
not.
back. Sorry about that. It's the stupid.
Oh, hey, Brian, welcome. We just
Okay.
started the show, you know, right?
We get the point. The censorship is bad. You don't have to make a drama piece out of it.
I was making it dramatic. No, what happened was I said I used the word tranny in a sentence, and I think the statement was something about tranny MMA fighters, and I think I was probably talking about Falcon. I think her name was Falcon Fox or something like that. I can't remember her name, but she was like this transgendered MMA fighter. But again, it was an old post from a while back, and I used the word tranny, and because of it, they had to ask me to re-verify. Not only that, but Blair White herself, who is transgendered, is also unable to send messages on Facebook until she re-verifies. So this sort of stuff is going on, and it's not limited to the word faggot. So I can go into the community standards. So they asked me to read the community standards, and I'll read them to you real quick. I'll try. Hopefully I don't get kicked out again because stupid Google. Okay, it encourages respectful behavior. People use Facebook to share their experiences and to raise awareness about issues that are important to them. This means that you may encounter opinions that are different from yours, which we believe can lead to important conversations about difficult topics. To help balance the needs, safety, and interests of a diverse community, however, we may remove certain kinds of sensitive content or limit the audience that sees it. Learn more about how we do that here. And so there is a section about, it goes into some detail, which I could explore later on. But essentially, that was the issue that I ran into on Facebook. And it's not limited to the words that I used or the ones that Lauren Southern did. So I guess that's all I'll say for now. Max?
Yeah, so do you want me to move on to...
Well, you know what? Since we're on the Facebook topic, why don't we does the next one move on to the next social media platform? Okay. So since we are on Facebook, let's talk about Facebook a little bit. Okay, so Kraut, you were saying to me, and this is the reason why I brought you on, is that in Germany, Facebook is being policed or
Yes.
it's controlled. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because maybe you're like the canary in the coal mine or something.
Let me see if I can figure out how to screen share.
Oh yeah. When it comes up, I'll share it with everybody else.
Is it working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We had this case that was about 2 months ago. That is Dunja Hayali. Dunja Hayali is a news presenter for a German TV network. And the court order which was made in this case was that a man who had posted hateful comments towards her during the migrant and refugee crisis was sentenced to no longer post so-called hateful comments towards her, or else he would be fined with 250,000 euros, which is a really weird kind of ruling to make by a court, because he hadn't even posted the supposed comments yet. It essentially is a ruling saying that you can't do this, even though he hasn't even done it yet. And the other thing I wanted to share is the revelation made by a news network that Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, is in fact working together with Angela Merkel and have created kind of a worksheet on the basis of which to work to censor comments and certain opinions throughout Facebook. And This article here is far more interesting because it goes far deeper into what the document contains. And what it contains is that, first off, Holocaust deniers are, of course, banned. Their opinions are deleted off German Facebook sites, but also attacks on Ataturk, who was the founder of the Turkish Republic. Posts that contain maps of Kurdistan are banned and censored off Facebook. Pictures of burning Turkish flags are censored. Any kind of material that could be seen in support of the PKK, which is a Kurdish terrorist separatist organization kind of thing in East Turkey. And the suspicion is that the German government is employing tactics used by the Turkish government, that they are introducing advisors from the Turkish government who had censored social media in Turkey before. We all know that under Erdogan, there have been considerable efforts to censor the internet in Turkey, and they, of course, probably have a lot of experience in this. And that is the main suspicion, that Turkish officials are advising the German government on how to censor the internet, the Facebook in particular. And the thing that that Facebook in Germany set up is the so-called Council for Civil Courage, which initially this is the wrong page, sorry, which initially claimed it would engage hateful comments by discussing the subject. But in recent days and months, to be honest, we have seen more and more that they are actually deleting and censoring comments by various people. And they include various organizations such as the ICSR. These are all organizations I've never heard of. The Institute for Strategic Dialogue, the Amadeo Antonio Society. And I've been looking through their sites through the past few weeks to see who they are. And there seem to be think tanks, anti-extremist think tanks and speech think tanks, all of them professing how much they would like to engage people with extremist views. But throughout the past few months, I haven't seen much of that engagement, to be honest. It has been more centered around censorship. All right?
All right. Well, let me undo that. Well, thank you, Kraut. That's pretty interesting. Does anybody have any thoughts on what's going on in with Germany? I know that we're just looking at social media and stuff, but it's I think it could be far more sinister, considering that so many people use Facebook to communicate ideas. And again, we are looking at the censorship of words and stuff too. If nobody, Hannah, yes. Go ahead. Hannah, you're fighting with the mute button.
Yeah, I was fighting with the mute button. Everything's slowed down quite a bit all of a sudden on my computer. I just wanted to point out, this is actually something that was sort of, the whole comparison of the slow boil, where if you drop a frog in boiling water, it'll hop out, but if you just slowly heat the water, the frog doesn't notice. This is kind of what's going on here, and I want to refer back to a 2013 article on Voice for Men by Sage Gerard, where he talked about the campaign against speech on Facebook by Women Action Media. Women Action Media is a group that, funny enough, they did some of the same things that Gamergate did, but for different reasons. They weren't trying to get rid of corruption. They were trying to get rid of speech that they didn't want to see. And they used an incident that occurred, I believe, also in 2013. There was a woman campaigning to put Jane Austen's face on Britain's then new $10 banknote, and she made the news when she claimed she was harassed on Twitter by like a whole bunch of people. And after the whole story came out, which took some time, you come to find out there were 2 people who said really nasty things to her, and a bunch of other people who argued with her as to why that should or should not be done. So she had a couple of nasty comments, and one guy definitely got arrested for his behavior, and then I think a female actually got in trouble also. But what ended up happening, what ended up coming out of that was Women Action Media campaigning against Twitter. And that was how the report button on your profile page on Twitter came about. But this same group had attacked Facebook first, and they changed Facebook's standards. If you want to read the article by Sage, it's "Facebook Hates Women?" Is the title of it, and it's on A Voice for Men. It's under the author Sage Gerard, so it should. If you see something later by him instead of that come up in the search and you click on his name, you should be able to find it. But there's also, I remember also writing about, as soon as that actually was successful, one of the first images we saw taken off of Facebook was actually a poster. Let's see. I don't know if I've got I don't have it up, but it was a poster to benefit abused boys for an event to benefit abused boys, and that was deemed offensive and removed. So it really didn't. It wasn't a feminist initiative. They didn't want somebody who was out of feminist control talking about the issue, so somebody reported it and it got removed. There were a bunch of other things like that as well. And we saw this happen all through 2013 and 2014. And now here we are in 2016, and like we're just starting to see it explode everywhere.
It's 2015 plus.
2015 plus.
Yeah. Kraut, you wanted to add something to what Hannah was saying?
What I probably forget to mention the last time when I was giving all these examples is that we essentially already have the kind of trust and safety council that Twitter is about to implement, and that maybe you in the United States and Canada should take a closer look at it and how it operates and how it intends to work. The collusion with government politics is so blatant and so obvious. How Facebook essentially built an institution and more or less as a cover, because it's a screen. It professes to do all these wonderful things like engagement, etc., but in fact it just bans people and bans people. And that's something that you should probably look out for in the United States. The collusion between government and social media on censoring the opinions from the internet. And Facebook, if I can add, I mean, I think Facebook is the most disgusting social media entity there is. I don't have an account. I find it disgusting how Zuckerberg tries to get himself onto the Chinese market by proposing to cooperate with them in censorship. And it seems to me that he's just opportunistic with absolutely no ideals considering freedom of speech itself. And he would bend over backwards to let people censor the internet. I'm done.
All right. Well, Kraut, don't get too angry at Mark Zuckerberg. He's a Jew, and it just sounds bad when you do it. I don't know why. I'm just joking. Okay. It was a bad joke. Sorry. Scott, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, it's I've beaten this drum before, and I'll go back to it. I'll go back to the well just for a moment. But we look at these things, and you can, in many cases, you can very clearly see the root of this is kind of to gentrify the internet. They're trying to make it safe for normies. Basically, they're trying to get rid of all the opposing voices that are causing trouble and stirring things up and making it difficult for advertisers. That's something I will continue to beat the drum of until the day I die or until it stops. But it's kind of funny when you kind of look back at this kind of stuff. This has been happening very, very quietly for a long time, and until I don't want to like invoke Gamergate as this panacea of change. It's just like, oh, it brought all these things to light, but until that happened, there really wasn't this kind of awareness about these sorts of things. And part of it, a big part of it, had to do with the kind of Streisand effect that occurred, because these these people, these institutions like Facebook and Twitter, doubled down so hard. They went so crazily against the whole Gamergate thing that it brought more and more attention to this and just amplified the voices of the people that were actually speaking out about these kinds of things. So it's kind of interesting because had they not been so damn afraid and so just putting so much energy into shutting it down and shutting down these voices, we wouldn't be having these discussions right now. I don't think it wouldn't have amplified that signal so much to the point where normies are actually seeing this stuff now. Just everyday people are kind of beginning to see how these sorts of attitudes are influencing everything at this point. I mean, it's obvious to us because these are the kinds of things we focus on, but everyday people are finally becoming aware of it. So it's kind of interesting in that regard that the problem is finally seeing light and not just in a very niche community, as it were, or a very small community, a segment. I think it's, because of the Streisand effect, it's really kind of blown up. And I think, and again, not to invoke Gamergate, but I think Gamergate is pretty responsible for a lot of this stuff, because otherwise I think a lot of this stuff would have been swept under the rug.
Yeah, or would have passed undetected.
Yeah, it would have been that dull hum that's been going on in the background for so many years, even before anything happened, regardless of Gamergate or associated with Gamergate. It would still just be going on very quietly in the background, and nobody would notice. But things just kind of blew up. So.
Yep, blew up like Kim Kardashian's ass. All right, so I want to give Max a moment to say a few things. He wants to make his piece known about Twitter because he has to take off. And then I will resume with Hannah after that. So Max, go ahead.
Yeah, trust me, guys. I would love to stay, but Mother Nature's on it. Period. So, anyways, the four bands, if we're including what happened to Brian in the past few days for really benign stuff on Facebook. Now that that's out of the way, let's move over to Twitter, where some similar stuff is happening. Now, some people like Crowd and Tildeer might say it's too similar, but we'll get to that in a moment when I leave. So, some serious stuff might be going down if two websites whose users hate each other come together in agreement over one issue. Now, a website called Phalanx Blog did a summary of two articles. One was written by the aforementioned Yiannopoulos on Breitbart, and the other was written by a user named Get the Word Out on the Daily Kos. Now, Mr. Yiannopoulos said the following, quote, Twitter isn't merely targeting spammers. For weeks, users have been reporting that tweets from populist conservatives, members of the alternative right, ultra-libertarians, and other anti-PC dissidents have disappeared from their timelines. Now, among these users complaining of shadow bans are Vox Day, Geek Culture blogger Daddy Warpig, the popular pro-Trump account Ricky Vaughn, League of Gamers founder and former World of Warcraft team lead Mark Curran, Sargon Abacad, as well as Mercedes Carrera. The pattern of shadow ban reports follows close on the heels of Twitter's establishment of a Trust and Safety Council, which we were just talking about, packed with left-wing advocacy groups as well as Islamic research center, the Wahid Institute, end quote. So Milo made sure to support his claims by citing an interview he had with somebody inside of that company, and a major publisher supported the statements made by that insider. So if you want to go check out that article, it's very easy to find. It's one of the more recent ones. As for the Daily Kos, they reported on a Twitter account known as Guerrilla Socialists. Nice. The account was responsible for the Which Hillary hashtag, which got 450,000 retweets in less than 24 hours, which is probably, I think, one of the fastest ever accumulating hashtags for that. Sometime after this, the hashtag's trending status got removed, and the Guerrilla Socialists were suspended. Now, not to tread on Crowd and Tildeer's role here, but I believe it's important to mention now that when they got suspended, Miss Clinton, Hillary Clinton, trying to run for President of the United States currently, had an important primary going on. As well, Twitter Executive Chairman Omid Kordestani headlined a fundraiser for the Clinton campaign. Now, it goes without saying that this doesn't actually confirm anything, but it does smell a little bit funny when there is an obvious conflict of interest occurring here. Now, it's also worth mentioning that Twitter came out and admitted that the suspension of the Guerrilla Socialists was a mistake. Nevertheless, these incidents, along with false flagging on other YouTube accounts, seem to be increasing in number. Now, that may be just me having stared into the abyss for too long. I'm sure everybody else here can relate to that. So, but I still believe incidents like these are worth talking about and keeping an eye on. What with the advent of, Trust and Safety Council, and what you were just talking about, crowd in Germany and such. So, am I crazy? Help me out, guys.
Well, I'm gonna let Hannah say her thing. It may have been and then I want to see what Teal Deer has because I know he's done some work. So, Hannah.
I'll start out with no, you're not crazy. There's definitely discrimination going on there, and it's not just, and it probably does have to do with the serious conflict of interest, but it's not just one format. It's all of them, and it seems to be like I saw the same thing on Reddit as far back as, gosh, I've been shadow banned on Reddit 5 times for discussing men's issues and for posting about court cases that are embarrassing to feminism. So, and this is something that, like, I'm not the only one that's experienced that. There's been other MRAs on Reddit that have had the same problem. And I like the enforcement of the harassment rules has been very very biased, to the point where I wanted to point out the poster that I was talking about earlier that got banned was not abused boys as I remembered it. It was a rally for men and boys in crisis. I can actually show it because I've got it here. Let's see if I can, if this is the right thing. Hopefully I'm sharing the right screen. Can you see it?
Yes. Let's go and put it up there. There you go.
Okay, so this is basically just it's covering more than just one topic. It's not just abuse. It's also discrimination against fathers, men and boys in our family, criminal court, media, education system, and government. And it talks about men's rights being human rights because men are human. And the organizations at the bottom that had sponsored the event, and this was a 2013 event. This was determined almost immediately after these new rules came out on Facebook to be considered in violation of Facebook's new rules. So let me see if I can switch here. And I'm going to do this again. See if it's
there it goes.
Okay, this was not in violation. Now I put the text on the side, but this group, see if I can enlarge this.
Control and the plus sign will, or you could do that.
There we go. This group was called Operation Castration Domination. They didn't really have a lot of people. I made it too big. All right. Fine. There we go. But they didn't have necessarily a lot of people at the time that this was there. But they posted pictures like this. All some of them are obviously fake and intended as jokes. Some of them are real images, but might not necessarily be from the same thing. I don't even know what this was all about. But they basically decided that it was okay for groups like this to exist, and it took a great deal of essentially mass reporting from various groups that objected to them to get them removed, while the A Voice for Men poster went down almost immediately. So this kind of thing, this kind of thing is all over, and I'm not really surprised to see it spreading to Twitter, partly because of the discussion that took place on Reddit when they first started targeting Twitter and first started demanding report buttons be put on everybody's profile. So you didn't just have the opportunity to block a person so they couldn't contact you anymore. You also had the opportunity to report the profile and try to get them removed from Twitter so they couldn't talk to anybody else either.
Oh. Yeah, so let's see if we can delve a little deeper with this. Teal Deer, I know that you were brought on because you have unique knowledge, or at least you've compiled some things. Do you want to talk a little bit about it? Is this limited to Twitter, or do you think that this also extends to other things? What are your thoughts?
I have no idea whether or not this is going out to other websites. I don't use Facebook at all. It's basically just an automated update thing for me. So Facebook, to me, is an irrelevancy. I don't know anything about that. All I know is that the Twitter Trust and Safety Council, which was put into place not all that long ago, has some very, very questionable organizations on it, and it's not the ones that a lot of people seem to think. But there's a lot of organizations on there which are quite directly pro-censorship, have confirmed track records in legal court of getting material censored, and slightly more alarming is how so many of the institutions which are there are slightly incestuous in nature. A lot of them are connected via different social initiatives, and in some cases being connected to external organizations. Now, I could go through all of this, but if I were to, I think I might have to ask you all to don some tinfoil headgear.
Well, we're okay with exploring the idea because I actually also did a little bit of digging, looking into the people who run Twitter or who have founded it. And yes, I'm a fan of hats. Unfortunately, I don't have one right now, but let's take a look. Now, when you say it's not the ones people think, are you referring to two that stood out when we talked about this discussion before when we did our show R.I.P. Twitter? There was a mention that on the list of organizations that were involved with the Twitter Safety Council was Hollaback and Feminist Frequency. And those were the two that stood out for most people. But what is it for you from your perspective? What are we looking at here? Let's get into conspiracy theory.
Okay. Feminist Frequency and Hollaback are nothing in this. I'm quite happy to say that. They are nothing in regards to this. I'm going to let that settle in for a few people, because that probably sounds really, really weird. All of this that I'm going to cover comes as a result of a several-hour-long live stream which I did, where I actually just basically went through, clicked on every single organization, and read about them. Hollaback and Feminist Frequency, while we know they have very distinct feminist leanings, they've been known to, in the case of Hollaback especially, they've been known to manipulate evidence and use some very questionable methods to obtain the results that they want. Most people who know of Hollaback, they'll probably have heard of the, all of the street harassment that a woman received while walking in New York City for 10 hours. And the part that they don't tell you is that there's only about 2 minutes of it. About 3/4 of it is people saying good morning, and about, again, I think it's about 60 or 70% of those interactions come from a single road. All the things that never get there. So they're known to manipulate things. And Feminist Frequency, well, we all know what they're about by now, I'm sure. Very, very pro-feminist, headed up by Anita Sarkeesian, whose, I think, most famous quote that's relevant to this is the "everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out." I'm not actually immediately concerned about that, because she's stepping down from Feminist Frequency. She's on her leave due to depression and all of that. So whoever's going to be dealing with the Twitter Trust and Safety Council, it's not going to be her. I doubt it's going to be Macintosh, because as far as I'm aware, he's still going to be delivering on the Feminist Frequency Kickstarter campaign results several years late, but presumably that's going to be engrossing most of his time. So it'll probably be someone else working at Feminist Frequency who takes on the Twitter Trust Council. So it might be someone a little bit more level-headed, one can hope, maybe. But those aren't the biggest organizations that we need to worry about. And I say this because of the incestuous nature of many of the other organizations. And what I've actually done is, anyone who follows me on Twitter will have probably already seen this in some incarnations. I have assembled a kind of big spider diagram thing that shows how many of these organizations are directly linked to each other and how some of them share ideological data, ideologically manipulated data, and how some of them are connected to external organizations which are not on the list, but are very pro-censorship. And worst of all, funded by the taxpayer.
Wow. Oh yes, Kraut. Yes, go ahead if you wanted to say something.
Tilde, do you know who the second largest owner of Twitter is? Who owns the second most stocks?
I have no idea, no.
It's a gentleman by the name of Alweed bin Talal. Actually, Prince Alweed bin Talal. He's a Saudi prince. And I'm going to put on my Islamophobia hat, at least a hat for which I get called Islamophobic. And that is that I believe there is a lot of vested interest coming out of the Middle East, especially after the revolts of 2011, when several countries had their people revolt, which were organized mainly via social media, through Twitter and Facebook, that there is a vested interest from many Middle Eastern countries, especially Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, etc., to get in place some kind of mechanism with which they can, well, essentially put some kind of control over it. Not just in their country, but I believe to a certain extent they might also be interested in controlling the narrative here in the West. I've spent the past few months, I've talked about this with Hannah as well, trying to find Arab money in social justice warrior movements, trying to find that, because you always find this notion, this talking point that criticizing Islam is somehow Islamophobic, and you find that word thrown around very often in these circles. And I do have the suspicion to a certain extent that these notions are being furthered from within the Islamic world, and that we are seeing almost, with Facebook, for example, that's not as much connected to the Middle East, but Facebook is making a lot of investments in China, trying to get into the Chinese market, and will, if they want to do that, have to apply to Chinese censorship laws. And I believe through this we are seeing a push from the unfree world, if I may call it that, from places in the Middle East and China to get a bit more control over the internet, because for the past 10, 20 years they didn't have any whatsoever, and that had a bit of a backlash on them. That's my theory, at least.
Oh. Well, I also did some digging. I wanted to look into who is actually the founders of Twitter and learn a little bit about them. So, do you guys know much about the founders of Twitter? And no? Or okay. Well, I don't. Go ahead, Teal dear.
No, I was just saying no.
Oh, okay. All right.
The
so
response.
here's a little bit of information that I've been able to get in a short amount of time. So, founder Jack Dorsey. He also created some of this stuff is relevant. It's just stuff I found. So he also created Square, which is essentially the app that allows you to make credit card charges through a phone. If you guys have ever heard of it. He lives in San Francisco, and he's on the board of directors at Walt Disney Company as of December 2013. Co-founder Biz Stone is on the board within companies such as Beyond Meat, which is a vegan company that makes alternative meats because he is himself a vegan. Work Pop and Jelly Industries. And Jelly Industries is still in its early phase, but essentially it's going to be a new kind of search engine, it seems like, where individuals that use it will help other people find what they're looking for. And that's what it sounds like, but they're being a little bit vague about what it is. If you go to the Jelly Industries website now, the only thing you'll find is that they're offering you a username for when it launches, and there's a little about us that essentially details what I said. If there's something that you're looking for that you don't want to ask for your friends on, or you don't want to use, say, Google, for example, to find, this is supposed to help you do that. He was also the executive producer on the Wired magazine. He used to work for Google, and he is very interested in causes that include animal welfare, environmentalism, poverty, health, and education. He has a very big interest in education, actually, which this kind of I found interesting because it reminds me of the whole Digra thing and how they were taking an interest in education, and there's someone who made a very good video all about that. And the last co-founder of Twitter is a man named Evan Williams. He actually spoke at the 2013 XOXO Fest, where he asserted the internet is not the utopia that he wanted it to become. He also lives in San Francisco. He is credited for inventing the word blogger. He worked at Google until 2004, and he left there to found a company called Odeo. Evan has said on Fortune magazine, there's an interview, that Twitter is a news resource as opposed to a social network. So he thinks it should be used for the news. He also said that Twitter is making tools to better organize information. I put that in quotes. He said this in 2015, around July, I want to say it was. He resisted the idea of allowing third-party apps to expand Twitter. So if there were people who, let's say, they thought, oh, I want to improve Twitter, I want to make this app, he actually does not, he wasn't very fond of the idea when he was interviewed by Fortune magazine in 2015, but he thinks that if such a thing were to happen, he would prefer to do so internally. Yes, like TwitLonger, for example. And he also thought that the internet would become a utopia and everyone would be smarter for it and the world would be a better place. But he's, in his last interview, he said he was disappointed with the results. And lastly, he believes, these are all stuff from the interview, he believes in empowering the less empowered on social media. And I wonder, I don't have a doubt in my mind personally that there is a connection with the belief systems of the people who run Twitter, who are the CEOs, and what we're seeing. I'm almost certain that there is a connection. So that was just something that I wanted to throw out there. So I don't know if anybody wanted to say anything else about this, or am I crazy?
It will in the end be the downfall. That's something that I believe. If the value for the shares, for the Twitter shares, are any indication, I believe we are more or less on the winning side of this. I believe that Twitter within the next few years will, if they continue this course at least, crash and burn.
Well, it's actually interesting that you should point that out. Twitter also, they did announce tremendous losses in 2015.
Well, yeah. You start severely limiting who can and can't speak on a platform that exists entirely to facilitate interpersonal speech. You're going to lower your income potential. You're lowering your user base. You're basically lowering the thing that you use to sell ads. And Twitter's had ads for, I think, the entire time I've been on it. It's had promoted tweets. It's had, you know, the ability for anyone to pay to promote those tweets. But the only reason to do that is if you know you're going to reach a lot of people, and if they start shrinking their numbers, then that's going to reduce the number of people that are going to find it financially beneficial to, you know, to actually pay to have their tweets promoted to the whole site or to certain groups or anything like that. I mean, why limit yourself like that? You know, so it's one thing to limit spammers that just post the same thing over and over again, or something like that post at people with links to sales sites and stuff that people aren't interested in and stuff like that. But it's another thing to go around censoring what kinds of political speech people can have and who people can be friends with, and start banning users because a lot of people have blocked them because they don't like their politics and things like that. As soon as you start doing that, you are limiting your ability to sell your site to people as a communication platform.
It's funny that you should mention this, because I believe from things that I've seen in the past month that the people who run Twitter and Facebook, probably see it as completely the opposite thing. If you take a look, for example, at Facebook, they're in the next few months they're planning to introduce a monetization system for these massive entertainment profiles that have started popping up all throughout Facebook. You know, trash like Buzz Vines and Sofla Antonia and all that other crap. And these people, some of them are frauds, some of them just copy content from other people's and re-upload it to YouTube and Facebook. But they bring in massive, well, how do I put this? Massive views. They draw in the people. They bring in the cash. And through the perspective of Facebook and Twitter, by furthering these vapid, brainless entertainment sites, and and blocking out all the other creators, creating this kind of corporate stack up, the silencing of other smaller accounts and opinion accounts, that's just a side thing to them. They believe that they are probably maximizing their profits through doing this. If that makes any sense, what I just said. I'm having trouble wording it in English.
No, that's very astute. I also,
if I may?
Yes.
Can I just interject here real quickly? I think the funniest thing about this, well, maybe not funny, it's disturbing, is that Twitter is essentially cutting the legs out from under the people that created their platforms in favor of big business now at this point. And you're seeing, like Kraut was saying, that this is something that's been happening on Facebook for a while, where there's there's sponsored content on Facebook where you can actually buy ads and all that sort of thing. But you see this kind of across the board. This is why, when I was part of Destructoid, why I kind of dipped out of there, because that was a place that was built on a community. And that it was very much an effort of the community to make that site what it was. But then money started coming in, and the community got sold out, basically. And this is kind of par for the course. It's like whenever money gets involved, you see it's like something gets popular, and then somebody, be it a PR person or whoever it is, sees value, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, oh, there's a community there. We can exploit this. We can probably buy up all the space and get all the attention now. And you're seeing that again. It's like I hate to keep going back to the well on this, but it's the internet is being gentrified, plain and simple. I think if you get back to the root of it, there's a lot of people doing fucked up things, but when you really get down to what's going on, I think it's a case of money. It's a case of they're trying to clean it up to make it a good, safe place to advertise their wares, as it were. So yeah, this stuff's been.
The internet's turning into Soto Sopa, confirmed.
Yeah, exactly. We just want to live in Sheepot Town. I just want to live in Sheepot Town. That's all.
And it's eating itself. It's eating the actual content creators. And I'm actually really looking forward to this development, because I believe, YouTube, it's a bit more positive. I believe that the people who run YouTube might be more engaged in actually changing things for the better. But I honestly can't wait for Facebook to just finally fucking collapse and be replaced with some other web presence. And Twitter, I've only had a Twitter account for about 3 weeks, and it's just such a disgusting, despicable, horrible, wretched, repugnant thing. I can't wait for it to just go away and disappear. And for, well, whoever may have the next best idea for creating another social media network, I guess they might learn some lessons out of this debacle.
Yeah, I think Facebook is going to go the way of MySpace, as Hannah was just about to point out. Except that you're not going to be, you never could customize your page the way you could with MySpace. Not that was pretty, because a lot of people put like the worst things on there, but
yeah, I know some MySpace pages were like, you'd click on, somebody would say, oh, check out my MySpace, and you'd check out their MySpace, and you'd need to go to the hospital for eye trauma from all the flashy, sparkly things.
So many sparkly Betty Boop photos, the worst.
Don't forget the autoplay music, which was so great.
Oh yeah, the autoplaying music was a great idea. A great
best. I love going on a page and hearing fucking Slipknot blaring at me while the fucking screen is blinking like a goddamn fireworks display. It's like, ah!
And then you're struggling to find
a glitter bomb.
You're struggling to find where the fuck it's coming from, So.
Like, yeah, heaven forbid you open up like multiple tabs at one time and you can't figure out what the fuck one that's screaming is from. Oh, Jesus. But I digress.
This is why my MySpace is probably mostly populated now by 13-year-olds.
But Facebook is fucking creepy as shit too. Like if you just go to do anything else on the internet, anything, like go to Amazon for a second, do a quick search, and then you go back to your Facebook, there will be ads for the thing that you just tried to look up on your Facebook page. Like it'll just be there. They'll just be like trying to sell you steaks if you ordered on Grubhub. It's creepy as shit. But I agree, crowd. I think that well, to answer. Okay, so Scott said this is why you don't use Facebook. Well, I only use Facebook because my friends are there, and that's the only way I can get in contact with them. I frankly don't like it. I'm really over it. And then Twitter is starting to look a lot like Facebook now with the ads that it's got. I noticed that at least I don't use Twitter often, but I've noticed that it's got more and more ads. I think that it's going to become both of those spaces, due to what's been going on, are going to become so homogenized that they can't survive. I want to read something about Facebook, the part of the community guidelines, because I think that this is important, the thing that I had to deal with. So there's a section on hate speech. Hate speech. Facebook removes hate speech, which includes content that directly attacks people based on their race, ethnicity, national origin, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, sex, gender, or gender identity, or serious disabilities or diseases. Organizations and people dedicated to promoting hatred against these protected groups are not allowed a presence on Facebook. As with all of our standards, we rely on our community to report this content to us. People can use Facebook to challenge ideas, institutions, and practices. Such discussions can promote debate and greater understanding. Sometimes people will share content containing someone else's hate speech for the purpose of raising awareness or educating others about that hate speech. When this is the case, we expect people to clearly indicate their purpose, which helps us better understand why they shared that content. We allow humor, satire, or social commentary related to these topics, and we believe that when people use their authentic identity, they are more responsible when they share this kind of commentary. For that reason, we ask that page owners associate their name and Facebook profile with any content that is insensitive, even if that content does not violate our policies. As always, we urge people to be conscious of their audience when sharing this kind of content. While we work hard to remove hate speech, we also give you tools to avoid distasteful or offensive content. Learn more about the tools we offer to control what you see. You can also use Facebook to speak up and educate the community around you. Counter speech in the form of accurate information and alternative viewpoints can help create a safer and more respectful environment. It's about respect.
Back in East Germany, in the East German dictatorship, they used to. The Stasi used to have special medals for people who reported dissenters and reported them to the secret police, kind of worthless bronze things. And I have a bet running with a friend of mine when Facebook will start awarding certain kind of worthless medals for the profiles to people who report others.
Oh yeah, like Sesame credit. It's going on in China, remember? Okay, so Hannah?
I can just see that. Achievement! Turned in people I disagree with for the crime of being people I disagree with. You were talking earlier about the creepiness of some of what the Facebook tracking and everything. There was an initiative. In 2010, the Federal Trade Commission pledged to give Internet users the power to block that kind of tracking, and it ended up that they were supposed to also stop unwanted telemarketing calls to cell phones and stuff. They didn't really do very well with any of that, and there were some hearings on it and everything, and in the long run they as much as they talked about doing it, it ended up being sort of blocked by financial interests that got involved in the discussion, and basically they hijacked the process and sort of turned it around. So Facebook is able to, like, different providers, you can put a an app on your browser to avoid being tracked, but the companies that track you don't really have to comply with it. They can use things to get around the do not track type apps and everything. And this is something where, like, it's not just Amazon. Any place that you shop, if there's a Facebook ad related to it, it'll come up in your feed. And even sometimes things that you have Google searched, ads for them will come up in your feed. Things that you haven't even gone shopping for necessarily, but we're just looking for. Because sometimes I'll see that when I'm on Facebook. Search terms I've used looking for public domain images to use because I don't want to go out and purchase an image, or because there's a famous old public domain image that I think fits what I'm publishing or something like that. I'll come back later and there will be ads that those keywords would have been appropriate for that ad. But I think really the truly creepiest thing that Facebook is doing right now is the real name initiative that they started last year, I think it was, and they starting to demand that people give not just a phone number to confirm that they're a real person, but personally identifying information that can be used by identity thieves if Facebook is ever hacked. So Facebook wants your social security number. Facebook wants your driver's license number. They might as well. They're a step away from asking for your banking information, and this is really dangerous to Facebook's users. And yeah, when they get hacked, because like Geek Variety is right, this is an inevitable thing. I mean, I hope they don't think they're invulnerable, because as soon as they started collecting that information and they made it public that they were collecting that information, they made themselves a target to the kind of people that do this. And it'll get to the point now where the only people that'll be able to use Facebook are people like who are not afraid of identity theft. Like, I would feel sorry for anybody who tried to take out a loan in my name because they wouldn't get it. Nobody wants to lend me money. But there are people who use Facebook to network with fans and for business networking and things like that are going to have to make a really hard decision if Facebook starts asking for their driver's license information or their social security information, to prove who they are. You're going to see people with a lot to lose and a concern about the security of that information just leave Facebook in droves. And if we don't see that, you're going to see at some point down the road some entity out there is going to do the same thing to Facebook that's been done to other big sites. And everybody, all of us that are on there, anybody that's actually given their personally identifying information, they're going to be compromised. The same as any other site.
I have a more technical question concerning a legal matter, and that is in Germany, the right to privacy, it falls under the allgemeine Persönlichkeitsrecht in the Grundrecht. So it's a constitutional right, more or less. It's like your First Amendment or Second Amendment. It's kind of, you have a right, a constitutional right to privacy. What is the status of privacy in the United States? Is it a constitutional right or?
Well, on paper, we have a right to privacy, but in reality, the only time it's very difficult to have that right protected. Now, there's some things that you can do, like if some big publication started writing about a nobody from some neighborhood, writing neighborhood gossip about a nobody from some neighborhood that nothing was happening in, and slandered them, their privacy is protected. But as soon as you get on the internet, your privacy is not really all that protected to begin with. This thing though of demanding, like, you're not required to give your driver's license out to the entire internet, but it's bad that Facebook is asking for it. That does violate privacy. But I don't think privacy laws would. I don't think privacy laws would prevent Facebook from doing that, because your relationship with Facebook is voluntary. Yes. It's a shitty thing for them to do, but they really don't have to. They don't have to tell you can be there without giving a driver's license, or without giving a social security card. personally, I think they should be liable for anything that happens to anybody whose identity is stolen, because Facebook doesn't need that information in order to have that operating relationship. They could have the same operating relationship that other websites have with people without any transfer of that personally identifying information. But that probably won't happen either. People's butts will just be hung out to dry.
I just wanted to say Teal'dir has been rather quiet. Horror over what you are hearing.
Partially, but also because this is all about Facebook, and I don't give a fuck about Facebook, so I have absolutely nothing to contribute. What I do find rather weird, though, is the idea that Facebook are going to do like a real name, it must be mandatory thing. I don't know if anyone else here. I think Brian, you are an ex-World of Warcraft player. Am I remembering correctly?
I did play it once. Yes.
Yes. Is that a once
No,
and then
like
you went to something else, or a once you lost 10 years of your life to it? Like
yeah, once I lost a few years of my life to it.
Yes. You might then be familiar with the real ID bullshit that they tried however many years ago.
I do remember that.
Do you remember what the
Yes.
result of that was?
Well, I do, but I think that you're going to put it a lot better than I possibly could. So.
Yeah, it got axed very fucking quickly because everyone said "fuck you," basically, and it became a strictly optional thing. I can't help but think that it'll go the same way with Facebook if they try.
I've actually thought about moving my channel to YouPorn, because their privacy policy is supposedly better than the one of YouTube. And if YouTube goes down the similar direction like Facebook, yes, I might actually take my stuff to YouPorn.
You know what? I would tend to disagree with you on that, though, because if you look at the people using Facebook and other platforms, they're not these measures aren't really directed at normies per se. These are directed at people like us who, well, no, not me because my name's out there, but people who want to maintain their anonymity. But for the most part, I'm going to say we are a very minor fraction of a percent of the people that actually use those platforms. So like everybody else, just kind of like the people that use Facebook, I mean, for the most part, don't care about the ads. They don't care about, things. Oh, I got to use my name. Oh, that's fine. Whatever. They just don't. They don't ever think about these things because these aren't people that were, for lack of a better way of saying it, they weren't raised on the internet, so that it's not their normal. They're not denizens of the internet. They use it, very sparingly. It's something they use to keep in touch with friends or family or whatever, what have you. If you want, measures are pointed at a very specific group of people to try and shut them out.
Many people don't even know about this stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to piss off normies, here's what you do. You limit the number of selfies or photos of their food they're allowed to put up.
Exactly.
Or how often they can retweet stuff that's been soundly debunked by Snopes. The end of the world on February 30th.
I want to go into YouTube, but let's wrap up Facebook and Twitter if there's any final words. The YouTube story is not quite as, I don't know, like the Twitter stuff seems a lot more sinister. So I'm looking forward to what Teal'dir has going on. I think you're going to make a video on your channel about it?
Yes. Hopefully I'll be putting that up, or I'll start working on it, I believe, Thursday. Whether I'll be able to get it up on that Thursday, feel free to make a joke there if you want, is another matter entirely. But we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
But,
I just want to say Facebook was the canary in the coal mine, and the majority of people who saw it happening kind of ignored it because they didn't care about Facebook. Now it's happening everywhere.
I'm just going to say that house will catch fire, and I will very much enjoy watching it burn to the ground.
I won't, because it was actually a good thing. A lot of people get together on Facebook that may not be able to get together in other ways of life, and it's not bad for people to be able to share whatever they want to share on the internet. What's bad is the way it's changed. But my point is, just because we don't have an interest in a particular website doesn't mean, especially a particular method of communication, doesn't mean that taking over that method of communication and limiting who has access to it by political means is not just as bad for that website as it is for any other. And this is my big thing about this. I don't care if people hate Facebook. It's still something that we should have paid attention to as a group when it was happening. If people had stood up and taken notice and started combating it back then instead of letting it spread, we might not be in a situation we are in today. It's possible that we would still be, but it's very possible that it wouldn't be as bad as it is now.
Well, I believe the market forces will solve it in the end. I believe there will be an alternative. I believe another web presence will take over. And, well, I have to hope at least that these people will not commit the same mistakes as Facebook.
That I can agree with.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think this was happening on Reddit before, too, right? In a way, I don't go to Reddit, but I think that was actually probably where all this was starting, and then people went to vote, I think it is called.
Well, actually, it was years between when this stuff started on Reddit and then when people went to vote, and the same line of reasoning was used to not care about it. Well, Reddit is the cancer of the internet, so we really don't have to care about this. So it's almost like that saying, first they came for these people and I wasn't one of these people, so I didn't speak up. Except it's first they came for this part of the internet and I wasn't part of this part of the internet and I didn't fight it. And that's basically what's going on now. All of the parts of the internet they've gotten their fish hooks into are the base from which they are operating in attacking parts of the internet we are interested in.
We're going to have to start using Google Plus for real now. No.
Brian, you are a horrible person for even suggesting something like that. I just want you to know that. Thank you.
Google Plus has supposedly it's changing, so maybe it knows what's going on in Facebook and it's trying to adapt.
Is it becoming self-aware?
I don't know. It's they keep telling me check out the new Google Plus, and I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Google. I can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Google minus, somebody wrote in the comments. Okay, so let me go into YouTube. Many of the people here have their own YouTube channels.
Nice.
See,
Really?
That's what you get for talking shit on Google Plus, I guess. Oh wait, I was the one that was talking shit. Never mind, that's all wrong.
Censorship.
Right, got censored for what I said. My God, it's happening.
Oh, jeez.
I'd just like to go on record now and say I think that YouTube is absolutely amazing and they can do no wrong. Please don't kick me out of the call.
All right. See, this is why Google Plus blows, because I got kicked out of the Hangout. Google, fix your shit. So all right, so YouTube, what's with the fair use action? Sargon's videos had a strike, and Dr. Ranamakham had a strike. Several people are running into issues. Teal'Deer, you haven't run into any issues with that, have you? Like pissing off Kate Brooks?
No, I've not had any copyright strikes, really. I've had a couple of the things where some company has tried to claim the monetization. Usually that's failed and cleared up within 2 or 3 days, but I've not had anyone try to actually copyright something to pull it down completely.
Yes. And Kraut, you also had something happen to you on YouTube?
Yes, I only had my account for about 3 weeks, and I'm already having this battle now. It's a German feminist who flagged one of my videos, and she's apparently part of a network which has the most ridiculous fucking name you can give to a company, Mediakraft. That just sounds so much like a Nazi buzzword. It's amazing, and they took down my video, and yeah, I filed my counterclaim, and I actually went into contact with a legal advisory hotline, an advisory board, and asked a lawyer for information on copyright and how this would work out. And yeah, I'm pretty sure my video will come back up, but as long as I have this strike on my channel, I am going to upload less videos out of fear of getting a strike.
See, and here's the thing I don't get about this. Now I know that YouTube has an algorithm. We run into this on our own channel where we have to, if we do a rant zerker, we have to pause every 20 seconds, so that we don't get a copyright strike from the algorithm. I guess that's what they call it. But it's not only that, but I was under the impression that you could use other people's content to essentially make response videos or criticize or parody or whatever on your own pages. That was one of the things that made YouTube so great, because it was like, feminist makes a ridiculous video with some ridiculous talking points. Somebody like us makes a counter video where we refute those talking points and make them look a little stupid in the process. Completely harmless to all people involved. And that should have been the way it was used. However, it seems like these copyright strikes or these sorts of this policing of YouTube is it's kind of not only does it, I could be wrong, it just seems to be that it's coming up more often, but it's also happening for the strangest reasons, hence the "Where's the Fair Use" hashtag that's been going around, where people are, they're trying to figure out how this is supposed to work. For example, there are people that break those rules all the time. You're not supposed to show nudity or sex on YouTube, but there are places where you can find it, and it gets lots and lots of views too. There's one, I think there's like science, kind of like sciencey videos that show how women become pregnant by men, so you can see sex and nudity. There's National Geographic stuff. There's documentaries that have that stuff in there. Then there's things like, for example, using other people's content normally has a time limit on it, but there are people who make reaction videos where they're literally sitting there watching the video and they don't even say anything, and they just play the entire video. And these are not just other people's video content. These will be movie trailers or other person's independent work, other people's Let's Plays, or what have you. So this is, I think, where the "Where's the Fair Use" or the WTFU hashtag is coming from. While, again, this is not really as sinister as Facebook, I thought it would be, because it was a good fit. I would just lump it in there with everything else. So
have you noticed the Merlin debacle around
No.
the dam? You haven't noticed that? Okay, I'm just going to post a YouTube link here. I'm not sure if you can watch this. Merlin CTL something. In the past month, 2 months, various videos by various bigger YouTubers, like I Hate Everything, people who cover various subjects, have been flagged, had their videos taken down or the monetization stolen. And it turned out that this was done by a company called Merlin CTLD something. And this YouTuber, to whom I posted the link in the chat, I don't know if you can show the video, probably not, he found out that this is essentially a company that found a loophole within the YouTube system, meaning that it flags people's videos and claims their monetization when something is trending. And then they keep that money. They found a way to make profit out of YouTube's broken system.
Yeah, this is actually something my son was just telling me about today. There were some various YouTubers that he watches that were complaining about this, and YouTube's system for dealing with it is really not functional at all, because you report the theft basically, and they take like 2 weeks to deal with it, and during that 2 weeks the other parties commit to collecting the money, and they end up keeping it. And if you report it, it may actually take longer for it to come back to you as you collecting the money than if you just let it expire. So they actually get more money. They can actually get more money from you if you fight the false flag. And I mean, I've seen some weird stuff on my channel. I had one video that went semi-viral. I wouldn't call it viral. It was like 360,000 views. And prior to that, I had some other videos that, like, my monetization just disappeared. and I couldn't turn it back on. And I didn't get any notification, you know, oh, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Nothing that would be a reason why it would be flagged. And one of them was a video of me talking. So I knew it couldn't be flagged for content, and I knew it couldn't be flagged for copyright. So I couldn't figure out, you know, if I had said something that YouTube considered inappropriate or what. So when I saw this happening, I used the feedback button to contact them, and it would get reinstated, and I wouldn't get any explanation at all. Oh, you know, you got flagged for this or anything like that. Nothing. Well, then my semi-viral video got demonetized, and it was demonetized after it had gone viral. So it was like I maybe got a few thousand views after it, and that was it. So it can't be that they did it to steal the monetization, because by that time it was done. Really, it had already slowed down. But I did the same thing, and it didn't come back. So a few weeks after that, you know, when I used the feedback button and it didn't come back, I actually went into their forums, into YouTube's forums, and started asking questions about it. And I got this bizarre message from YouTube: we don't know why this happened, and we're going to look into it, and we'll get back to you. And that's been 2 months, and I haven't heard back from them yet.
When I got my copyright strike, one of the first things I did was go to a Google customer service forum to ask my questions, and it's a German forum, granted, but they didn't even know what fair use was. They didn't even understand the fucking concept.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Teal Deer?
Yeah, about this bizarre monetization issue. What's happening at the moment is something quite weird. As you pointed out, people have this kind of strange event going on whereby your video can be... the monetization can basically be hijacked by another company. And all the time that you're fighting it, they can sit back and harvest your ad revenue. But something else which I've noticed, and I've questioned some other YouTubers about this, as you've mentioned, people finding their monetization just going away. And this is something which happens now. There's a number of reasons why this can happen. Sometimes it's what YouTube term very nebulously as advertiser unfriendly, or something along those lines, which is a slightly worrying term for them to be throwing out, because it can mean anything. The actual community guidelines on what is advertiser unfriendly is very questionable at best. But what I've noticed is sometimes on some monetized videos, YouTube has had a little bit of a weird glitch. And I say weird glitch. I suspect that it might be the weird glitch that Twitter has been having, whereby some people's posts don't happen, and Twitter just say, "Oh, it's just a glitch. You know, it doesn't. We have no control. We don't know why it happens. But it's just very weird that it only seems to happen to conservative bent politicians, or people from the alt-right, or people who generally stand against feminism or social justice or something like that." And this weird little event on YouTube is when someone's monetization doesn't go away. The actual little monetization tab on the video page will still be highlighted. But when you click on it, all of the individual boxes that allocate the advert space are suddenly grayed out, whereas they weren't previously. And that's a really weird one, and it's something which I think a lot of YouTubers who monetize their content are going to want to start checking, especially if you're on the either of a more conservative leaning, or if you're part of the alt-right, or if you're in opposition to feminism, or you support something which is against social justice, or even people within the MGTOW community. It's something that they might want to start looking out for, because I have a sneaking suspicion that this again might be part of a mysterious glitch that YouTube doesn't know what's causing it, and they don't have an explanation for, but it only seems to affect a certain group, just as a means of slowly driving down their finances so that they can't necessarily make a living off of it, which some people do, and or maybe just to sort of put a dent into their wallet, make it so they're less inclined to do things. I don't know, but it just seems like a really unusual event that's happened to some people.
Scott?
Yeah, you kind of you hit on something a little while ago when you're talking about the algorithm. When you're talking about YouTube, especially, it's kind of an interesting case. I guess it's actually fairly comparable to Twitter as well, as far as the volume of content that's put on it daily. But you're talking, hundreds of thousands of terabytes of information probably daily that is added to YouTube. So they have this system in place which, to be profitable, basically they have to use these algorithms that do these things for them, because there's no way that they can police all the content all the time. And that's not to say that this is okay, because it's obviously not. Because obviously, like Theodore said, there are people out there that are making a living here, and these things are negatively impacting them. But what's going on right now with the WTFU is something that needs to happen, and people really need to start pushing this more and more, because unless YouTube is held accountable for this kind of shit, it's going to keep happening. And like you mentioned, Theodore, you had mentioned there was a glitch in YouTube whereby like things were just disappearing, or people were taking advantage of the monetization issues. People need to speak up. It's like this should be a rally cry, because as much as folks might not think it affects them, it really does, because it affects the content that is viewable on these platforms. And if this kind of stuff leads to silencing the voices, like Theodore was talking about how conservatives, like that's obviously a more concerted effort on YouTube's part. It's obviously a focused effort, whereby the content strike stuff where we got to do the 20-second fair use kind of deal, or we get flagged or whatever it is. But yeah, these are things people really need to you need to be aware of this, and you really need to raise a fuss. So yeah, just yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
That's okay. Tildeer. Or did you go? No, I'm sorry, Kraut.
Oh, well, it has to be said that this is a system that is so easily abused. I mean, fundamentally, everyone who is flagged on YouTube is essentially guilty until proven innocent. And I mean, YouTube is not a government, it is not a legal system, it has its right to do so. But the thing that annoyed me the most when I got my false flag is that, okay, first off, my video is so obviously fair use. It's blatantly fair use. It's completely fair use. And the person who gave me that flag, I have to watch out now for 14 days over what I upload. I have a video on my site which I haven't published yet, because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get a strike from someone who will disagree with me. And it just cages me. It just puts me into a cage where I can't. It limits my expression. And one thing that really annoys me is that the people who do false strikes, the people who abuse these systems, and we know that there are hundreds of these people out there. We know that people do it with everyone, essentially. There are people who just do it with everyone with whom they disagree. These people, they don't get punished for that. That is one of the fundamental things that I would like to see addressed and fixed, that people who abuse this system, like I think Jenny McDermott, she before this skeptic mess started, she false flagged someone, and she just got away with it. And I would say that people who false flag, they should get banned. They should get strikes for these kinds of actions.
There's easily a precedent for this, just looking at the criminal justice system. A false flag is essentially a false accusation. And if you go and file a false charge with police departments and you perjure yourself in court, making false accusations and things like that, there are consequences. There's no reason why these sites should not employ consequences for blatant false flags. And it'd be one thing, if you feel like you've been harassed and the site doesn't feel like you've been harassed, that's questionable because that's a subjective thing. But if you claim to have created content that you didn't claim to create, or if you're flagging something that is obviously fair use, and it's determined that there's no question that it's fair use, it's perfectly reasonable for a site to protect itself from having to deal with thousands of false flags by by allowing this stuff. It's perfectly reasonable for them to protect themselves by creating a consequence. And I've been on websites that had that type of system. You could report comments or posts on certain topics and everything on gather.com, which isn't really a social site anymore. Now it's just tabloid news. But you could report other people for harassing you or for inappropriate content and things like that. But if you did it a bunch of times, you could actually get your own account banned for false reporting. And that was basically their way of not having to deal with this flood of butthurt controlling, the site, and a flood of butthurt keeping them busy dealing with people's, internal arguments and stuff in the site. And it would be very feasible for other sites to do that. It would work really well for YouTube and Twitter to do that. But once again, they would have to have a standard, and the only way it would really work is if they made that standard stick. So if they apply it unevenly, then they would still end up with a flood of false flags from the groups of people that they were more lenient toward.
Teal Deer?
Yeah, I kind of just want to second this. It's something that really needs to be looked into. The fact that there are people who are able to get away with abusing a system that is easily exploitable but actually necessary for legal reasons is it's outrageous that people can get away with it and there is no punishment. But the thing that makes it even worse is the fact that there are instances where people are able to abuse this but benefit from it. There are people who are going to be able to use this, and they're going to be able to take your money while you're fighting it, and in some cases they still then benefit from being able to ham up the drama as a result of it, because there are inevitably going to be people who are going to play the, oh, well, this is whatever you've done that I disagree with is hate speech against me, here's my Patreon link, and so on and so forth. I can quite easily see that happening. And I think it's something that people need to make a little bit more of a fuss about. I mean, the two biggest instances I had of this was where YouTube upheld a couple of privacy complaints, and I just make it very obvious that my stuff has been censored by re-uploading the video, often with an addendum at the beginning and at the end explaining a little bit more, and just really obviously blurring out the area of the screen because they have to timecode the bit which they're complaining about. So you just make it a really obvious point that someone called for the censorship of something that falls under fair use.
Kraut.
I just wanted to add as well, I was in fact advised to take the people who false flagged me to court. That is actually something that was advised for me. They actually gave me the laws that were broken, Verleumdung, which I believe is libel, Computersabotage durch Dateneingabe, computer sabotage through data, I don't monetize my content, but if it were, it would be fraud according to German law. That is what I was told. So yeah, I was in fact advised to go to court.
I have a suspicion that under U.S. law, and probably in other places as well, it would probably be considered fraud to flag somebody's videos so that you can take their monetization and take the funds from their monetization for a time period, because you're basically claiming someone else's work as your own work and getting paid for it, which fits the very definition of fraud. But it's certainly something that has not been tested in court yet. I think if somebody does it to a degree where they get enough money out of somebody and it's more than just a minor irritation, that will probably change.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna we've delved into these topics of these three different media monoliths of safety and freedom. So, what do you guys think that are listening? I know that how you feel about Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Notwithstanding, what are your thoughts on the fact that Facebook is going to be banning hate speech, whatever the fuck that means? They'll go so far as to remove actual transgendered people because they use the word tranny in their language, which is really weird. And about what's going on with Twitter, I think we should expect a video from Teal Deer around Thursday or so, where he's going to give us a little bit more detail. Is that I'm gonna go ahead and hope for that and expect it. Otherwise, maybe like Friday. I don't know, depending on how he's feeling. So, and then lastly, the where's the fair use thing is still going on with regards to YouTube and this sort of shady business of false flagging and monetization and so on. So, just give us your thoughts on those topics. And I want to thank my co-hosts Scott and Hannah, and Max, who could not stay. Thank you, Max, for coming and doing the write-up. And I want to thank Teal Deer. Thanks, Teal Deer, for making the time. I know it's late where you are. Right?
All right. It's fun being here.
Yeah, and I want to thank Kraut. It may even be later where you are. I'm not really sure.
It is, but only an hour.
By an hour. Okay. So, yeah, thank you guys for coming, and those of you guys who are watching, leave us a comment. Also, email us at topic@badgerpod.com, patreon.com/honeybadgerradio for donations, and feed the badger. Expect more videos from us very soon, and special guests. We're gonna have, we're gonna get Ciara McCord on for Friday, and then next week we got Julie Borowski coming for a special show. So I'm really looking forward to it. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us.